Hello, beautiful souls. Today I'm chatting to another beautiful person, Jan Edwards, and she is the president of the Paving the Way Foundation. And this organization is committed to empowering communities to be a first disruption in the cycle of child trafficking around the globe. So obviously, this is a topic that speaks to me, and I think we don't talk about this enough. So welcome, Jan.
Thank you. And I love the fact that you call me Jan. It's in America, it's Jan. Very
Jan,
boring.
yes.
No, it's so funny because when I, use my name and I'm in Europe, people think I'm a guy because in, the Nordic countries, it's Jan and it's generally a man because
Yes.
it's the John name. I'm like, no, Jan. Actually, my full name's Janet. But I played water polo in college. And by the time they got to the knit, the ball was generally in my face. So we just sliced my name up to Jan, and it's been that way ever since.
Yeah, you're so right. I just pronounced it very Dutch. There's my Dutch popping up. But yes.
No, and I love it because it sounds so eloquent, but then people think I'm a guy, and clearly I'm not. So,
To be honest, to be honest, when I saw your name, I also thought that you were a guy, and then I was looking more into you, and I was like, oh, it's a lady. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's kind of like Juan in the Latin cultures, and Juana is the female version of Juan. So, and Juanita is little Juan. So anyway.
Yeah.
I love cultures and I love names. It's just fun to play with, right? And it doesn't mean anything. It's just what we'd be called. So anyway,
Yes.
Thank you so much for inviting me to have this conversation. I am very passionate about this topic and, having the challenging, more difficult conversations around it with as many people that will listen. So thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely. I like I said just before we started this conversation, it's something we should be talking about much more. And I really appreciate all the work that you are doing with your foundation. So for the people who do not know your foundation yet, can you explain a little bit about what it's about and what you're doing?
Absolutely. So I'm going to give you a little bit of context background, like how this all came about, because I am not a survivor. Warrior. I am an ally and a centurion is probably the best word I can call it, and a passionate educator. So I went to Ethiopia about 8 years ago. I was invited to attend the Get Health Summit at the UN, and I met this extraordinary man. His name's Dr. Mahari. He's a neurologist, and he has an organization called People to People, where they gather the diaspora of Ethiopia to really make a difference for the orphans there. And, we've all met people or run into people in different environments, and you're like, I got to talk to you more, like that. And it was like that for us. So we exchanged cards, exchanged some texts, exchanged some emails. And he said, one of the emails, I'm like, I'm looking forward to talking. He was like, well, we're headed to Ethiopia. I'll make sure I reach out when I come back. I'm like, great, send some pictures, right? He sent me an email right back and asked, do you want to go? Well, it's not every day you get invited to go to Ethiopia. So I'm sitting there at lunch with my mom and my daughter, and my mom's looking at me being a mom, like, you're not going, are you? Protective of her kid. And my daughter's like, you're going, right? And so I went. And it was really there that I witnessed human trafficking. Now at the Get Health Summit, I had learned about child soldiers, right? And I had no idea what that was even happening. And I was mortified. Now here I am in Ethiopia, and it was just a moment in time where there were two, we were coming back, we were on a mission trip, right? So if anybody who's listening has ever done a mission trip, you're about to get what I'm going to say. And if you haven't, I'll explain it. You're given your heart, your soul, everything for 14, 16 hours in a day, right? At the end of the day, you're tapped out. You don't want to talk to anybody. You don't want to do anything. You want to eat, take a shower, and go to bed. That's all you want to do. And so I was in that exhaustion stage, and I'm looking out the window, and there were two older men and two younger women. And it just didn't feel right in my gut, just like that knot you have when stuff's off. So when I got back to my sponsor's house, I asked him, I said, this is what I saw. And he's like, oh yeah, that's, human trafficking. And I'm like,
Wow.
hey, I go, what are you talking about? Remember, this is 8 years ago. Okay.
Mm.
And he's like, Jan, we have 4.5 million orphans in Ethiopia. Those were the number one source of human trafficking into the Middle East. And my brain was taking a couple of minutes to comprehend what he was saying. And I said, hang on a second. I said, are you telling me people are selling people?
Mm.
And he's like, yeah, like, where you been? You know, it's so obvious and clear to him. And I'm over here going, I don't have any idea what you're talking about. And he said, he's like, Jan, this is $150 billion industry. And then I was on a webinar last week because I try to stay as up to date as I can. I just heard it's now a $400 billion industry worldwide. It's the
Mm.
second fastest growing crime in the world. And again, I'm like, wait a minute. I just couldn't get it. My brain couldn't wrap my mind around it. And he's like, Jan, where you been? I'm like, well, I live in the happiest place on earth. We don't have these kind of, we don't talk about this. And it
Mm.
was really there that it got laid on my heart to do something about it. Like it just got laid right here. So I came home, I did a bunch of research and found out that Florida, where I live, has the third highest number of calls to the National Trafficking Hotline,
Mm.
behind California and Texas. And I was like, okay, Ethiopia, I'm coming for you. I got to fix my own backyard first. And that really started me on this quest of, okay, I know there's a problem. I know there's something happening and I don't know what to do about it. And so I picked up the phone and called a bunch of people. I tell people I don't know a lot and I know a lot of people. So I called my friends and they put me in touch with their friends at the FBI and Homeland Security. I talked to undercover police officers along with survivors and I asked them all the same question: what's missing? Why is no one talking about this? Why aren't we shouting from the mountaintops, right? Our children's futures are being ripped away from them and they don't know what's happening. Their parents don't know what's happening. Why aren't we not talking about it? I just didn't get it. And they're like, Jan, people don't know about it. There's no awareness. Well, I have a background in marketing and media. That was something I could do. So I've written and produced an award-winning film. We've educated 14,000 youth over the past 4 years, mostly in person. Last year, a little bit online, a little bit more online this year. We're luckily getting to go back into schools this year. And, we have the uncomfortable conversations that mostly parents don't want to have,
Mm.
and it's about the intentional online and in person enticement and recruitment and grooming of our children into a life they can't even fathom. Like
Mm.
they see music videos and movies about this exciting life, and it's not like that. It's not like that. And that's one of the main reasons why we're committed to having these kind of conversations, is to bring space and grace to the environment and for people to really understand what's happening, and then what actions to take, what conversations to have and what actions to take to actually stop it and interrupt it.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mainly focusing also to educate the children in this
Mhm.
case. And are you there
Absolutely.
working with specific ages that you start with? Because the grooming already starts at very young ages, right?
Yes,
I
it
mean,
does.
it's very sad, but it is the truth. So
Mhm.
how to go about this? Because the parents obviously also take a very important role in being aware and talking about the uncomfortable.
Absolutely. So my sweet spot is middle school,
Okay.
in particular Title I middle schools. The youth there are so appreciative of someone coming in and having a straightforward conversation with them.
Mhm.
We don't talk at them, we talk with them and we engage in a dialogue. And that's really kind of what we coach the parents to do too, is I share a lot of facts and then I share stories because that's how your brain retains information, right?
Mhm.
And And it's an easy way to start a conversation with a fact, just saying, hey, did you know the average age of recruitment is 11 to 14? And the average age of entry into sex trafficking is 17? And people are going to say yes or no. They're either going to go, gosh, I had no idea. No, and then you've started a conversation, right? With a fact.
Mhm.
It's not an opinion. It's not a point of view. We have, with the facts that we have are the facts that we have. Doesn't mean they're perfect. It doesn't mean everybody's using the same one, but I've got some great data from the state of Florida. So that's what I use, right? Or you can share a story. And one of the reasons why I'm so adamant about having this conversation as loudly and as often as we can is it now takes about 7 to 8 days for a child to be recruited and groomed online.
Wow.
It's a very short amount of time because, see, when we weren't sequestered at home, it might start online, but it would take time because they had school, they had events, they had other stuff happening in their life. So they weren't glued to this thing, right? Last year, the tides changed.
Mm.
In fact, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children has reported like almost 65 million images that were reported from child sexual abuse material that was online,
Yeah,
which is up about 45% from the previous year. So it's now gone from weeks and months to days, and it happens very quickly. There was a little girl here in Apopka that was groomed and recruited in 7 days on Instagram. And a 26-year-old guy drove down from Georgia. She willingly got in the car, which means she created a bond with him, right? And luckily they caught him before they crossed the state line. And she said that he actually said to her, we're going to have to lay low for a while because what I'm doing, it's not legal.
Wow.
And, and she came from a great home. That's the thing. It's the thing about exploitation, human trafficking, modern day slavery. It's all kind of called the same thing, right? Is it knows no socioeconomic boundary. It knows no demographic boundary, and it knows no geographic boundary. Really, anyone is a potential victim. And especially now, given the environment where our economy is a little squirrely,
Yes.
people have jobs, they kept their jobs, maybe they lost their jobs. You can make a lot of money on OnlyFans by taking your clothes off. And if that's what I got to do to pay my rent, I've just now put an entire family in jeopardy. So it's all connected.
And that's also the thing. What a lot of people don't understand, that this is such a big one of the biggest issues worldwide. Because, for example, drugs, you sell one time, you get the money, and it's a once-off thing. But with people, it's over and over and over again that you will be receiving money for it, and it's terrible. So
Well, and
for
it's and it's interesting too, because there's this conversation for choice, right? And I was talking to a group of, it's a alternative high school, right, where kids have either left early and wanted to come back and get their GED, or something happened, and they take students from 16 to 24 years old, right? So you can go back and still get your GED, which I think is really great. And we're having this conversation, and one of the kids goes, well, what about the girls down on OBTs? We call it the trail here. And I said, that's a really great question. Let me ask you something. I said, so great. I said, do you think someone would really choose, like, you just got to really think, right? Would really choose to be raped anywhere from 10 to 25 times a night? And I just let it sit there for a minute. And he got it. I didn't have to say another word. And so did all the other kids. They got it. Because there's this glorified view of selling yourself for sex. And rape is rape. Whether I say I choose it or not, whether money exchanges or not, And so that's part of the conversation we have with youth is, Well, they chose it. Well, let's look. Like, let's really look. If they think that's the only option they have, that's actually not really a choice. Really. If someone's gotten me addicted on drugs and now I have to sell my body to get my drugs, that's not really a choice either. So these are complicated conversations to have as adults, remembering a child's prefrontal cortex is not fully developed until they're 25 to 28. So while you and I can have this kind of conversation and really grasp it and get the gravity of it and get the impact of it, both short term and long term, for children, I'm angry at my mom. My best friend, made me mad. My boyfriend or girlfriend just dumped me. I'm going to go on social media and vent. And predators are circling, waiting. They're just waiting to drop into that environment and say, me too. My mom did that too. My boyfriend or girlfriend did that too. Let's trauma bond over it. And that's how it starts. It's something so simple as that. And they feel heard. They feel validated. They feel connected. All the things that we need as human beings. And they manipulate their way into these children's lives, all under the roof of their parents.
Yeah.
And parents don't know because they don't know what questions to ask. They don't know what apps to ask about. We've got a great one sheet on our website, which is pavingthewayfoundation.org. And it's under Teen Tech Talk. And it's a one sheet of all the apps that recruiters go to attempt to recruit children and how they do it. They start very simple, bonding over something they have in common. And everybody puts everything on social media, right? My favorite movies, my favorite food, all of it, all of it. And all it takes is, oh, I see you were at the Greek corner. How was it? And if I'm 15 and I'm bored and you're cute, I might respond.
Yeah. Yeah.
And women even your age and women even my age can fall for it too. We've seen the scam stories of single older women, being, reached out by a oil rigger in, the Gulf.
Yes.
Right. My wife left me, this sob story. I'm lonely. Can you send me money? And I'm like, you're an oil rigger. What are you going to spend your money on? But they fell for it because they were lonely. We need connection.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So social media plays a very important role in this whole grooming process, if I understand it correctly, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Are there specific channels where you see that more? Like for me, for instance, right, just being present online with a voice as a female, I have complete different experiences just on Facebook, for example, than on Instagram. And yeah, so I can imagine that will be different for different channels. Is there anything you can say about that where parents or children need to pay more attention to?
Well, all channels. There's not one over the other because there's different strategies and tactics they use for every single social media channel. And I invite parents, just go onto your app store and find OnlyFans and then look at all the other apps that come underneath it. It will frighten you because the moment your child goes to the app store and attempts to download that app, they have access to all these other apps. Look, there was Tinder for kids. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay. Look, I lean a little bit more towards the traditional family values. Okay, I do. Mainly because of people's hearts. And I also understand we're all made uniquely. And that's okay too, right? However, the difference is a child's brain isn't fully developed. There's no real opportunity to make a choice because the cognitive dissonance isn't there. What makes them happy and joyful today isn't going to make them happy and joyful 3 days from now. I can't tell you how many things I put my daughter in, piano, dance, golf, soccer, during that period of time. And there wasn't really one that she loved or resonated until I got her into choir. She loved singing or as choir, so she found her thing. But it was like, she's like, yes, 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 I want to go do this. And then she'd do it for 2 or 3 times. And then that desire, that whatever that is that happens inside a child's brain is gone. It's not her fault, right? It's not her fault. It just, this whole prefrontal cortex thing continues to get rewired. And that's why middle school is one of the most challenging groups of kids to teach, because their brain keeps getting rewired, and you've got to be with it. And you've got to address the fact that what they learned in 5th grade, for whatever reason, they don't remember in 7th grade. And it's because this keeps getting rewired. Okay. And as parents, that's probably the biggest thing I can share or answer. Uncles, grandma, grandpa, because we all live in a community now, right? Is for parents in particular to fully understand your child's brain isn't developed yet. And so when they make a mistake and you come at them with the "you should have known," they really don't know. They really don't. And then I know parents are always in the space of, well, I told them to clean their room. I told them. It's like, yeah, I get you told them. Doesn't always mean it was retained. That's why they have, that's in education. We repeat stuff. You learn it and you repeat stuff, and you learn it and you repeat stuff. And that goes on over time. So it can actually become part of our, brain memory. And our kids don't know. They don't understand the impact that if I take an inappropriate picture and then I send it to someone, I can never get that picture back. There's a lawsuit against Twitter. One of my good friends, Lisa Haba, who's an attorney here, there's a little boy who's 13, and he was on Twitter and was engaging in a conversation with what he thought a 16-year-old female. And they exchanged pictures, right? And the conversation got very heated, passionate and all of that. And she said they wanted to meet. And that's when he drew the line, thank God. 2 years later, he goes to school one day and his friends hold up their phone and they're like, "Is this you?" This person had taken all of those pictures he'd sent and made a porn video out of it and put it on Twitter. He had no idea. Talked to his friend, told his friend he was probably going to commit suicide because he couldn't be with the shame and embarrassment. Luckily, that person was wise enough to let his mom know. So they had a conversation, and the beautiful part about this mom is, she understood her son didn't know. He didn't know. So they did everything they could, sent emails to Twitter, called Twitter, and it always came back, "Sorry, this doesn't, meet our standards for taking it down." So luckily, one day she was at church, venting with her pastor, and her pastor said, "I actually happen to know someone at the FBI. I'm going to call him." That's the only reason why Twitter took it down. It's the only reason.
And that's also very concerning. Sorry, that's very concerning to me, because they are not, to me, they're all in it, but they are not like taking those things down, because it's kind of part of the bigger picture. And that's where the issue keeps existing and actually only growing.
And I just read an article yesterday that, any child can, if they have Twitter on their phone, has access to pornography. And I'm, my brain doesn't operate that way, right? I just don't even think, and I'm like, what? And so I actually went into Twitter, typed the words they said. I was like, oh my gosh. Like, oh my gosh. If you know the words to type in, it's a whole plethora. Now, and I know like Snapchat has Snapchat after dark and OnlyFans has OnlyFans after dark. Great. And if you're an adult and you choose that, like really choose it, not as this is how I make money and it's the only way I know how to make money, which I'm back to, in my opinion, isn't fully 100% a choice. There are some women that would disagree, not a problem. I get where they're coming from, I really do. But as a child, It's not really a choice, right? And so holding the technology companies accountable, because there is no way, like there is just no way you can have enough moderators on any of those platforms to catch it all. You just can't. You know, Facebook was the number one source of reporting over 20 million of those 65 million images. Thank God they reported it, but there's still 65 million images that there's 45 million that somebody didn't get to, right? So there's a line there that we're going to have to start to dance across of, educating our kids. First of all, at the moment you take a picture and you send it, you can't get back. Can't get it back. And in the state of Florida, if you take an inappropriate picture and you're under the age of 18 and you send it to someone, you are now a distributor of pornography. And if it ends up on your phone, you now have possession of pornography. And that's why I invite everyone to take off your AirDrop, because people can AirDrop pictures from anywhere. If you're in a restaurant and they have an inappropriate picture, they can AirDrop a picture onto your phone and you have no idea. And you now possess pornography, child pornography, which is even worse, right? Children don't know that. Neither do parents. And so when we have the conversation at school, I'll say like, okay, now not that any of you would do this, right? And I share that and they get all squirmy. It's really cute. And and the conversations we have too, I do like to separate boys and girls at a particular point in time in the conversation, because I can have a straightforward conversation with the boys and the girls. And I'll say, not that any of you do that. And I kind of walk through it's pornography. You just created pornography, distributed pornography, and that person now possesses it, which is a class 1 misdemeanor all the way up to a class 3 felony. It's a sextortion law here in the state of Florida. I said, secondly, you can't get that picture back. I said, now I'll say, ladies, do you really think that someone that asks you for that picture has your best interest in mind? Really? And they're like, no. And then with the boys, I'll say, okay, how many of you have a younger sibling? A little over half of them will raise their hand. I'll say, great. Do you want your younger sibling's picture on your buddy's phone? And it sinks in. They're like, no. And I'm like, stop asking. Just stop doing that. And they start to do the thinking. And that's really what I want them to do. I don't like being a talking head. So I want people to think, what happens when I send that picture? Are they going to use it against me? And there's story after story after story of children committing suicide because they didn't think there was any other way out of getting that content off the internet or off someone's phone. And that's what I'm trying to interrupt as well, is to let kids know, first of all, you were manipulated. Someone manipulated you into feeling safe, and that they lied to you. They weren't who they said they were. And now they're using that against you, and you feel trapped. And there's nothing you can do. Well, there actually is. First of all, it's against the law what they did to them. It's against the law what they did to you. If you're a teenager and you're listening to this, what they've done is against the law. You did nothing wrong. I'm going to say it again. You did nothing wrong. You did what you thought was right at the time because you trusted that person. Well, they didn't have your best interest in mind. It's against the law. So if you have a safe place at home, share with your parents, be with, they're going to be upset, not necessarily at you. They're going to be concerned for you. They're going to be upset at this person out here that tried to hurt their baby, tried to hurt their child, the most precious thing they have. If you don't have a trusted adult at home, find a trusted adult, whether it's one of your teachers, one of your counselors, one of your coaches, and let them know what's happening. And the second thing you want to do is you want to report it. You report it to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. You report it to the FBI cyber tip line. And every single state has what's called a Department of Child and Family Services, and they have an abuse line. You can report it there too. Because see, here's the thing. Mostly predators don't just target one child. They target dozens. And by you reporting, you can actually save another child's life who may not have that safe person. And they can get all that data off of that predator's phone and save somebody's life. And that's the biggest tool I think I can employ with children, is that for them to get, they can be a hero. They can be a hero in someone's life just by sharing a fact, just by sharing a story, just by sharing that kind of information of take off your geolocator, turn off your airdrop, stop accepting friend requests from people you don't know. Those 3 things right there could literally save a life. And I invite parents to do the same thing.
That's very powerful. The things that you're saying, and also to share their story. I think that's so important because it comes already with so much fear and shame and guilt that to just share what just happened, because deep inside you do know something is not right. Everyone can feel that, even the children can feel that. So it's already so brave to speak out loud to that person that you do trust. And then, yeah, so powerful what you mentioned, like you will be saving other kids, because it's not just one, it are many. So yeah, thank you for that. In terms of the parents, what can they do? What type of conversations should they be having with the kids, what they're now avoiding?
Right. Well, I was just in a clubhouse room and we were talking about, having the sex talk, but it's way beyond birds and bees. It's, we're designed for procreation. Okay. That drive to procreate is there and it's real. The challenge is managing it. Okay. And when you're a teenager, in particular a teenage boy, you are a walking hormone with arms and legs. That's all you want to do. That's all you want to do. Right. And it's acknowledging that, because if we pretend it's not happening, or we talk about, I don't know anything, and the next thing you know, your son comes home and goes, oh, I got a girl pregnant, because you were uncomfortable. That's not okay, right? You just altered 3 lives, not to mention families. So it's really beyond having the birds and bees conversation. It's having a conversation, particular with your sons, what it is to stand up for a woman, for another. Bullying's pretty much against the law in almost every school. I have some friends that reached out to me, their daughter's being cyberbullied and the parents don't know what to do. And so I sent them several resources about how the conversation. So having the conversation with your young boys, with your sons, about, what it is to be a safe space for other people, not just women, other people. There's the big football player and the, choir guy, right? 2 completely different humans. And I still love, I watch Glee all the time, reruns. But the thing I loved about Glee is they addressed all of it in a way that was really empowering for people. And I know kids could relate to it. My daughter and I watched it, and I know she could relate to several of the characters, So it really is, we are our brother's keeper. It really is important for us to look out for one another. So to have the football player to look out for not only, maybe the girl in National Honor Society, also, the young boy that's in choir or dance, that may be different from him. And it's okay. It's okay. Human beings are human beings, right? We may not understand it. We may not agree with it, but it doesn't mean we have to be mean about it. So really educating our young men about what it really is to be a gentleman, what chivalry is, and not to come rescue me, although there may be times I might need you to do that, as a woman, but really to stand beside me and be an ally. And if I'm, and teaching your sons, if you're in the locker room and one of your buddies is speaking derogatory about a girl you actually know, to interrupt it and be like, you know what, that's just not really cool. That's my sister's best friend. That's Joey's sister. Would you want someone talking about your sibling like that? It just brings it into reality. We do stuff and we don't think about it, right? So really having that kind of conversation with your sons and with your daughters to set boundaries. Really, it's like, no, look, you are a queen, you are a princess, you are to be cherished. right? So stop tolerating bad behavior with boys. They're going to push as far as you'll let them until you say no. Have them be valued for what they think and what they want to do and who they are versus how they look. Looks, yep, everybody judges everybody by what you look like. It's just human nature. Can't get around that. Not a problem. As long as you can acknowledge it, you know? And so having those kind of straightforward conversations with your kids can make a huge difference for them. And to give them another grown up to talk to. My best friend and I have known each other since we were 5. And she's a lot more like my daughter than I am. And so, I made sure that they had a relationship that if there was something she needed to talk to a grown up about that she could trust, that I knew was trustworthy, she knew she could call her. She knew she could have a conversation with her. I had several people surrounding her, quite frankly, for that very reason. Make sure they know there's another trusted adult in your life, that because it's embarrassing to talk to your parents about stuff, right? And the last thing we want to do is disappoint them. It's like, what do you mean you think you're fill in the blank? And parents are like, oh, deers in the headlights. Like, no, go talk to Aunt Susie. She'll get you sorted out. We'll have an open dialogue. You won't feel so embarrassed. And then really to have the conversation about what's happening online with your children. And that's why I give facts, and that's why I give stories, because it's something that parents and kids can look up together. And then you can ask about the apps they're on. Go, yeah, I heard about this new app, OnlyFans. Have you ever heard about that? What do you think about that? And being in an inquiring mind and in a discovery with your child is the most powerful educational tool you can give them. Asking open-ended questions and giving them the time and the space to discover, to do the thinking, and to come back and go, gosh, you know what, Mom, I was looking on OnlyFans. I heard my friend was on it, and I don't want to be on that. There's like naked people, Okay, great. Well, let's talk about that, and should your child come up and say, Mom, remember we talked about that online stuff and not to send pictures? And well, I did. And I coach the parents, the next thing that comes out of your mouth is the most important words you can ever say to your child in their life. And so I train them to hold their breath for 3 seconds, because your body is going to have a reaction. Let it have a reaction. It's okay. You just got to take a deep breath and hold it for 3 seconds. And you can say something like, it's okay, honey, we'll work it out. It's all right, honey. Thank you for trusting me and coming to tell me. Let's talk through this. And the tone of your voice and the look on your face has got to be as neutral as you can be, because they will pick up on every single micro alteration you have, to create that safe space. And sometimes it's going to take a little time for you to create that environment, because as parents, look, none of us came with handbooks, right? Not every human being's the same. We have some general sense of what works, but we're not all the same. So to be able to figure out what works with your child to create a safe space. My daughter and I used to shop. That's when we talked, right? We'd be, looking at clothes, and we'd be driving. That's when we would have some amazing conversations, because there was no pressure. There's, it's just when we talked, or we'd go for walks and we talk, and creating that space that works for your child. Some kids, they like to color and draw. We'll color and draw together and start to have a conversation of, anybody, is there any bullying going on at school? I was listening to this woman today, and, she reminded me that bullying's actually, in schools, they have a responsibility, and I know this is a really challenging time. Are your friends okay? You can start there. And we have a great parent toolkit on our website. You can download it for free, and it gives you really great questions to ask to start some of these conversations. And we also invite parents every day to tell your kids you love them. You might think, or you might say, oh, they know I love them. Remember, the brain keeps getting rewired, just keeps getting rewired. And you continually remind them that you love them, and you're committed to their life and their greatness and them having an extraordinary life. That's your job. That's our job as parents, is to make sure our kids win.
Yeah, thank you for that. Beautiful. Yeah. And in terms of you mainly focusing on in your own states and states, right? But the journey started once on the African
Ethiopia.
continent. This is, of course, one of the biggest issues that we're facing worldwide. It doesn't matter which country we're in. And I want to say this again also to the audience who is watching. Even if you think it's not happening in your country, I can assure you it is, because it's happening everywhere, also in the Western world. So in terms of the work that you're doing now, like are you still also in Ethiopia that you running
Well,
projects?
we went international last year. We worked with an organization over in the Bahamas, right? So that was fun. And we're expanding across into the Western states and into the tribal nations. It's another group of individuals that are really underserved in this environment. And, you know, we have materials that are translated into Spanish, Portuguese, and Creole, and we're working on French. And there's a really great report that the State Department puts out every year. It's called the TIP report, Trafficking in Persons. Anybody can download it. And it'll go country by country where everybody ranks, where they've improved, who's not improved. And it's a really great tool because I'm a huge fan of advocacy. You know, you and I are lucky we live in the United States. This is the only country in the world currently that you can walk through a metal detector and go talk to your representative. You can't do that really in any other country. Okay. So we can actually advocate face to face or via Zoom now with our representatives at the state, local, and federal level. Find out where your country is on the TIP report, and then find out who's responsible for managing the laws that really hold not only the country and the government accountable, but the bad actors accountable that are trafficking people in your country. And, you know, you can form letter campaigns, you can pick up the phone and call them, you can go, you know, I'm a huge advocacy person about having people's voices heard. And each country works how they work. Find out how your country works, because here's the thing. My parents were very clear about instilling this with me, and that is, you are a citizen of this country, which makes this country your responsibility. You're responsible for how this goes. So if you see something that's off and you don't do anything about it and you don't say anything about it, well, sorry, shame on you, right? So I was raised from a very young age to speak my voice. And if I see something off, make sure I say something. Sometimes it gets me in trouble. Sometimes I make a difference, but I'm willing to take the risk because my parents raised me in the fact that it's an honor and a privilege to be a citizen of a country. Because as we both know, there are people that don't have a country. There are people that were displaced from their nations, and right now they don't have a country. So they don't have a say how it goes, but we do. And that's where, you know, there are several pieces of legislation at the federal level in the United States. There's several pieces of legislation in Canada that I know about, and there's several pieces of legislation in the UK. So you want to become educated and informed about what your government's doing to disrupt the cycle of trafficking, both child trafficking and labor trafficking. Because we didn't even talk about labor trafficking. And that's actually, there's a higher percentage of labor trafficking in the world than there is sex trafficking. Sex trafficking is just more lucrative. That's all. Because someone's actually, you know, building bricks or pulling cacao beans out of, you know, the pods. And that's the other way people can make a difference too, internationally, is find out fair trade chocolate.
Yes.
Stop buying chocolate that uses child labor. And there's a great website. It's called fairtrade.net. And you can look up what companies don't use child labor. Now you may pay a little bit more for your chocolate, but you can sleep better at night. So we can vote as citizens, as purchasers with our wallet. Same thing with clothing, same thing with jewelry, right? I won't buy anything anymore that's made in China. Just won't do it. Because I know what's happening, right? And then I look, it's like Vietnam or Thailand, and I'm like, oh, I actually look up the designer. I look up the company that's selling the clothes. Do they use fair trade? So that's the kind of stuff we can do. If you don't have children, if you're a millennial, if you're a Gen Z, you can actually make a difference by voting with your wallet. Instead of buying regular chocolate, buy fair trade chocolate. Make sure your coffee's fair trade. Make sure your tea's fair trade. Just that one simple thing, and having all your friends do it can make a difference, because that's going to have the other companies start to look at how they're doing their business practices on their supply chain and make changes.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out.
You're
conscious,
welcome.
conscious consumerism is so important.
Mhm.
I run my own tea company, and because of exactly that, what you're pointing out, we were like, we need to make a difference. So we were working according all these principles, like direct trade and women empowerment and fair trade, all those things. And the problem here is, again, people still want to have the products for the cheapest price possible on the other side of the supply chain. But we can make the difference by just putting in a little bit more of money on the other side of the supply chain. There's such a big difference for specifically the children. It's so true. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome. Yeah, I focus. I do have my lane, and I'm also cognitive of the other things that people can do, because not everybody's a mom, not everybody's a dad, not everybody's an aunt. So there's something every single one of us can do. That one little thing of buying fair trade tea or buying fair trade chocolate, or making sure, buying locally sourced, clothing, your earrings, I love your earrings, makes a difference. That can make a difference, because you just supported a company that was taking a chance, putting their, what on the line, to have our community be a solid source of not only jobs, but revenue for the community and for that company and for us. So when companies win, we win.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we need to run this up. So I'm gonna ask you one more question before we finalize this. Where we at in the world, with everything unfolding, people need to raise their voices. It's very, very important. My concern as well is that a lot of people in government or higher positions are often also involved in certain circles, right? So what do you do now as a parent, as someone in this in this industry? Maybe you don't know the way out. Like, it's that safe space, right? It's that one person that you do trust, and it's overcoming the fear. That's what's coming to me now. But what would you advise?
There was a lot inside that statement.
Yes, sorry. Yeah.
No, it's fine. So I'm going to address what I know I can address. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's, if someone is in a situation that's not safe, right? There's a variety of ways that happens. So I'm gonna take the hottest topic right now and deal with any kind of backlash we get, but that's what. So we have in the United States T visas and U visas. And if someone is being trafficked, labor or sex, in the United States, and they come forward, we actually have the ability to keep them here, keep them safely. And the condition, from what I understand, right, and I think you can look this up on the ICE website, is you have to testify against your trafficker. And if you're willing to testify against your trafficker, which means we can put bad people away, right, so they don't do that to anybody else, they have the opportunity to extend a U visa or a T visa to you. So I'm just going to say that right there. Okay. The other piece is, not all law enforcement is bad. I work very closely with local and state and federal law enforcement. Everyone I've worked with is extraordinary, and they do this because they care. I have a friend of mine that's been offered several promotions, and he won't take them because he knows the difference he makes in rescuing children out of human trafficking and out of labor trafficking. And he knows, where to take them. He knows where to keep them safe and all of that. So, not all law enforcement's bad, and not all family and child services are bad. They actually are doing that job because they care, right? And inside that space, you want to trust yourself. You want to trust your gut, because there are some bad actors out in the world. It's a small percentage, and you could possibly run into them. So I always coach people, trust your gut. You actually have more neuronal receptors in your stomach than you do in your brain. So when people, we talk about that, that feeling right there just didn't feel right, trust that.
Yeah.
And there are safe spaces. There's, domestic violence shelters. There's the 800 number. You can call 888-3737-888. That's the National Trafficking Hotline. So you can call that if you're in trouble. We've got the National Suicide Hotline. We have the National Domestic Violence Hotline. We have the National Domestic Rape Hotline. So there are lots of hotline numbers that people can call to get help if they're in an unsafe environment. And lastly, hold your representatives accountable. This is no longer a who's right or who's wrong when there's human lives at stake. It's doing the right thing, right? And it's when you got to pay attention to what's happening at the federal level, at the local level, and your city level. You have to. We can no longer be sound asleep citizens in whatever country we're in, and being present and being aware and doing some of the legwork. It takes something. I invite people, I said, you can complain all day long. I said, but I invite you, go look up those bills. Go see what bills your representative is supporting. See which ones you support, see which ones you don't, and tell them. Because see, by law in the United States, they have to open all their mail, they have to read all the emails, and they have to listen to all the voicemails we send them. That's their job. They work for us. I think sometimes they might forget that, or we might forget that. And that's where the responsibility of being a citizen of a country is to have your voice heard. So find an email, go email them, pick up the phone and call them and talk to one of their legislative aides, or write them a letter. And let them know how you feel about the pieces of legislation they're working on or not working on, and invite them to that. Look, people say government doesn't work, in particular the United States. They're like, oh, I can't make a difference. That's not true. We have 20 laws that have been written and passed specifically around human trafficking. We have TVPA, we have VAWA, we have VOCA, and we have dozens of other laws that keep victims and survivors safe and provide services for them. Those just didn't happen. Those were years and years of people like ECPAT and Shared Hope and NCOSI and NCMEC and Paving the Way Foundation, right? Being at Capitol Hill, picking up the phone and calling our representatives and letting them know the reality of what's happening. Because they don't know, just like, that's why we're having this conversation. People don't know. People don't know what they don't know. And so keeping your representatives accountable is the best way I can think of. Use your wallet to vote, and then use your voice to vote when it comes voting time. We have a say in how the country goes. We really do. It may not look like it right now, but we do. We always do, and that's all I'm gonna say about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that. It was absolutely lovely to connect with you, and thank you for your time. And I think we've got some very valuable information for people listening in, for youngsters, but also for parents. Is there any way we can support you? Your website, of course, or your socials? Where can people find you?
Absolutely. So on Facebook and Insta, we're at Paving W. Pretty simple to find. Our website is pavingthewayfoundation.org. Again, and there's lots and lots of resources on there for people. You just want to go under programs, and we've got tons of things you can download. And then on LinkedIn, it's Paving the Way Foundation. And we are a 501c3, right? So there are places on our website you can go and contribute. We're also on the Global Giving platform. And in November, we'll be doing our Lights On for Children campaign. where we invite everybody to go buy a blue light bulb and put it in their porch so that they can start conversations. And I know it's early, I know it's only March, but you can keep that in mind as well, as to it's a really great opportunity to have a conversation and raise awareness about human trafficking. So we invite you to partner with us, whether it's praying for us, whether it's sharing a post on social media, or whether it's joining our team. We have mission ambassadors. We love training people to go out and have this conversation, because we're 55 strong right now across the United States and growing into Europe. I've got some people in Africa and Europe that want to become mission ambassadors. So it takes all of us to have this conversation, and that's why we're translating all our materials in as many languages as we can, so we can actually make the kind of difference we're here to make, and really educate our communities, empower them to know what it's about, so we can prevent our kids from being trafficked.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I will put all these links as well when I post the video so that people can find it.
Thank you so much. Thanks for today. Today was really fun. I'm so glad we connected.
Yes, thank you.